Hi everyone, welcome to Online Hero Talk series, a series of talks and panel discussions organized and hosted by Hero House and supported by our corporate partner Viva-MTS. This series is aiming to bring international best practices into the entrepreneurial community that is shaped around Hero House and beyond. With this series, we are featuring global startup programs. Around 2 weeks ago, we hosted 500 startups. And if you missed this video, you may find it on our Hero House YouTube channel. And today, we're very happy to host Berkeley SkyDeck Accelerator Program. I'm Liana, Analyst at SmartGateVC, and I'll be the moderator for today. And I'm very happy to introduce an exceptional lineup of speakers we have for today. We're lucky to have Brian Bordley, Principal at Berkeley SkyDeck Fund. Welcome, Brian. It's our pleasure to have you in the panel.
Yeah, really happy to be here.
Our pleasure. We have two alumni from the previous batches, Alex Saroyan, CEO and co-inventor of Netris AI and graduate of Berkeley SkyDeck Fall 2019 cohort. And we have Tigran Petrosyan, CEO and co-founder of SuperAnnotate AI and graduate of Berkeley SkyDeck Spring 2019 cohort. Welcome you two. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we have a current participant of the accelerator program, Gevorg Soghomonian, CEO and co-founder of AimHub and participant of Spring 2020 cohort. Welcome, Gevorg. Great to have you in the panel. Before we start, just a quick note to our audience. While we are discussing, feel free to leave your thoughts, comments, and questions in the YouTube or Facebook live chat, and we'll address them closer to the end of our discussion. And if your question is addressed to a specific speaker, I would just ask you to write the name of the speaker in the beginning. I think we are now all set up and can get into Berkeley SkyDeck. Brian, my first question is for you. Could you give us a brief overview of the accelerator? How is it designed? How long does the program last? What are the main components? And what's the format of the program you have in place?
Yeah, so SkyDeck, the program, has been around for about 8 years. And over the last 2.5 years, the launch of the Berkeley SkyDeck Fund has been accepting global founders into its program. So we source some of the top founders from both the University of California campuses, as well as from some global regions, such as Armenia, we've been very satisfied with. And we take these companies, and over the course of 6 months, we substantially improve the team, the technology, and the traction through the network and resources that we have at Berkeley. We help train these entrepreneurs on product market fit, on effective business model. And we don't do this in a quick 3-month program. We really spend a lot of time over the course of 6 months getting hands-on and helping these companies so that our companies, ideally, at the end of the program, can raise somewhere between a $1 to $5 million round of funding. Sometimes it takes some time. I know it took SuperAnnotate maybe 6 months to get their round closed. But we kind of give our companies all the resources and advice that they need in order to kind of hit that milestone of fundraising. And then each of our companies receives $105,000 on basically day one of the program as well. So that's a little bit about the program.
Do all participating companies receive the funding, or is this like a competitive process?
Well, it's competitive to get into the program. So we had about 1,600 companies apply to Gevorg's class for 23 final spots. So that's where the competition is. But if you make it in that final 23 or whatever it's going to be, that final cohort, you will receive the investment.
Okay, now let's dig a little bit deeper into the selection process. What program acceptance criteria do you have? What are the main expectations and requirements from the founders, teams, the startups? And if there's anything specific about international teams, that would be great to know.
Yeah, I think what we lean on is big market, or I guess great founders, big markets, and cool technology. And I would say, all of our teams are doing very kind of well in those 3 areas. I think the 3 founders here perfectly exemplify what that means. And traction, how much revenue you have and such. I think it really is hard to say. Sometimes companies come to us with $2K a month of revenue. Sometimes it's $20,000 a month. Sometimes it's some unpaid users. And it really kind of depends on how excited we are about that team and about that technology and product. So, that's kind of what we're looking for there. And I think we're looking for something that truly has differentiation from, anybody else that's out there. I think one of the things we found from at least Armenian entrepreneurs is that, the technology they're building does have a lot of differentiation from what's out there versus just, another enterprise software app that's been done in America before. So I think that's the one thing that we're wary of is how unique is this idea? And I think that's something that we look through, those competitive dynamics. And then we don't do a lot of consumer companies either. We're mostly focused on kind of enterprise, industrial, life science, and deep tech companies. Only about 10% of our portfolio is in consumer.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So on this note, I would like to hear from the alumni. Do you have anything to share on this selection? I would like to know, what do you think has been your competitive edge upon selection that ensured participation into the program? Alex, should we start with you?
Sure. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I would like to know if there's anything, what do you think has been your differentiation point upon selection to the program? Like, what do you think has been the most decisive point about Netris AI that has ensured participation to the program? It might be the team, it might be the market you have been in, might be the technology you have been using, anything, or just all of them together.
That's a great question, and we're in a space that is considered to be kind of hard, an infrastructure space, and I actually have learned a lot from that election process itself, and it wasn't like easy, and I've got lots of great questions that made me think from all kind of different angles, and I had to prove that so good team, that's okay. Myself and my co-founders, we all had background in the domain. That's clear. We've demonstrated that. We had customers, so that was very helpful in terms of demonstrating that what we are building makes sense and it at least works. But the big portion was to demonstrate and defeat your vision and your story. And I've got a lot of questions. It sounds like I bring in right answers, so we've passed through this program. But I could say that I've also learned a lot from that process as well. So basically, great team, large market traction, customers, and right story, pretty much. So understanding of the vision, having the right vision and the right story of the industry and so on.
Yeah, that's very interesting. We have anything to add from Gevorg or Tigran? Would you like to add something?
I can add on this point. So the selection process, of course, is done by Berkeley SkyDeck, but what we can extrapolate on this is when we were coming to SkyDeck, we had the prototype, we had the small team, not much traction, actually, not customers. We're just humble university graduates. We're just excited to do something. And yeah, so SkyDeck gave us a lot in order to feel what it is to build a business and go forward. I can extrapolate more maybe later on this.
Yeah, we'll get to your experiences a bit later. Gevorg, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I think in terms of the competition, obviously there are like many different companies. I don't know how the competition towards other, because like different industries, different technology and everything. But like what we essentially, did a bit of job of showing some of the stuff that we were building, some of the, people that we were talking at the time. So when we were applying, we were in the middle of kind of raising and like active sales process. And then we have been communicating and also, just sharing some of our thoughts. I guess that has been our process, at least.
Thank you all for contributing. Now let's get a little bit deeper into the process. Let's say I'm the founder and I qualified for the program. What happens next? How is this process? What major stages do I pass through? Brian, I think you're the best person to take this question, and then we might have again inputs from the alumni too.
Yeah, so after our teams get into the program, they go through the 2 rounds of interviews and they get in. They have to kind of think about that transition. Traditionally we've done an in-person program, and with coronavirus, we have adjusted that to a virtual program, which I think is still going quite well. But regardless of virtual, in-person, our folks, once they're in the program, I would say the program's broken into 3 major parts. So let's talk about the first 6 weeks. The first 6 weeks of the program is really where you get to know our community. You get to meet your advisors. You have to pitch your story probably 100 times to 100 different people to really kind of get good at talking about what you're doing. You're getting to know the SkyDeck staff, the SkyDeck fund. You're kind of doing a lot of events and programming. It's very, very, I think, I wouldn't say intensive, but there's a lot that goes on the first 6 weeks. So for most startup accelerators, you're already halfway done, and for SkyDeck, you're really kind of just getting started. And then what we do in those first 6 weeks as well is help establish some milestones that our team should hit in order to fundraise. That next 3-month period is really where we look to leverage the Berkeley network to help our company succeed. So I think I think we started doing this incredibly well with SuperAnnotate. And I think Gevorg has also gotten quite a bit of this as well. But we really try to leverage the Berkeley network to give our companies introductions to the right potential customers. We'll basically go find the Berkeley alumni who are in the roles, if it's infrastructure, perception engineer, teacher, director of sales, whatever it's going to be. We found that the University Berkeley has a very large network in basically any field. What we can do is we can go after these people. I can email them on LinkedIn. I get about a 1/3 to 50% response rate. And we can ask them to take time to meet with our teams. And then we'll kind of we'll supply leads and introductions to our teams during that time. They're also commonly kind of still doing some workshops and events, but it's a little less intensive with those side. And they're kind of just kind of building the business at that point, working on their technology, trying to close new customers, and maybe hiring a potential team member if that's something that they're looking for. And in the last 6 weeks, after they kind of spent the last 4.5 months building that business, the last 6 weeks is really where we focus on fundraising. We run 2 major fundraising processes for our teams. We have a demo day with about 650 investors that is one of the largest in the Valley. And I think a lot of our teams will meet some angels from that, maybe some potential customers from that. But I think more importantly, before demo day, we will run a process called Investor Month. And we've established relationships with the top 150 seed firms in Silicon Valley. Just for some context, our firm is backed by Sequoia Capital, Mayfield Fund, Sierra Ventures, a variety of VC firms. So we have really deep ties to VC firms in the Valley. What we can do is we can set our teams up with back-to-back meetings with a bunch of investors over a small period of time, normally about 4 weeks. And that's kind of the last part of that process. So that's kind of where we sit. That's kind of the program, in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. I would like to hear about the alumni, more specific about the day-to-day processes. Was your day in Berkeley during the Berkeley SkyDeck program, was it more focused on one-on-one work with mentors, advisors, or was it? Did it include group meetings and group events? How was it?
Maybe I can start here. So basically all together. So there's a time when you have workshops, and there are times when you have one-to-one meetings with advisors, basically the office hours. There are times you're just working hard to bring your product ahead. So it's another very important part for every startup to remember that when you're part of the accelerator or SkyDeck, for example, it's not like you're just doing all the programs and workshops in SkyDeck. You should spend tons of time on your startup, especially in the nights. So that's kind of important part. And of course, the closer you go to the second half of the 6 months, as Brian mentioned, we get very intensive meetings with tons of investors. And I think that's not just about doing fundraising, but also understanding how investors think, what they want. And actually, investors are actually very good business professionals that can tell you what works and what doesn't. And during these meetings, you refine your business model so much. And I think this was a lot of learning point from that perspective. And to talk a little bit more about advisory part, which is more on us first half. Especially in our case, this was extremely crucial because we came out of university. Our product was very scientific, deep tech, and having a connection to Berkeley was very important for us because we got to know one of the god professors in our field that became our advisors from UC Berkeley. Also, actually now 2 of the advisors from UC Berkeley joined our team recently. So that kind of connection was also very, very crucial for us.
I can add on top of this. So when we actually raised money before going to SkyDeck, and I had some experience of fundraising, but actually in SkyDeck I've discovered that oh my god, I don't have any experience. Like I don't understand much. I don't understand that well how this fundraising works, how investors think, because like probably one of the there are lots of great things, but one of the highlights from that is actually learning how to talk to investors, how to properly interpret questions that are coming from investors and how answer them. And I agree with Tigran's point. And investors sometimes may kind of grill you, if you will, can ask some tough questions. But these tough questions are extremely important. You want to not just find out the right answers, but it is great when you go back with these questions, you understand for yourself, like this is a right question. Does my product solve this? Should I think about it? Maybe I need to change something. And so in SkyDeck, they also help you to think in this way, not both through speaking to people who are actually investors, but you can speak to them in a friendly way. But also they also teach to some techniques on how to approach the entire fundraising process as it is. Yeah.
So we have access to network, we have fundraising help, business mindset. Gevorg, you are still in the program, not graduated yet, but what's the highlight of the program for you so far? You are muted.
Yeah, oh my God. I mean, yeah, this has been the best thing that happened to us so far. In terms of like you have been living in this world of having connections, and then you're dropped into this another much wider world of where like there's like so much people to ask all these different questions and learn more about the business, learn more about the product, and essentially like specifically for AimHub, having the chance to have all these direct conversations back to back with amazing researchers that are at these different labs at Berkeley just has been perfect for us. That's like, so essentially the first 6 weeks, like we have been starting asking so many questions, like learn, just, meet lots of people, try to share with them, what we are building, get feedback. And then, in the meanwhile, just ask lots of questions and then learn more about the product, learn more about the sales process. There's so many different aspects to it. Yeah, and then now we are in the process of a lot more work than we were in the first part, where now we are kind of getting into the sales cycles and just to go for the better traction and things like that. And I think a month and a half later, we are going to get into now the investor month. So yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. Yeah, but that has been our experience so far.
Great. So we talked so much about these connections of connections of connections, but this is a network of people from different countries with varying cultural backgrounds. I wonder, how do you manage at Berkeley to maintain a smooth and integrated culture that helps each other this much? Brian, you are the best person to answer this, I guess.
Yeah, and I won't deny that I think doing the program virtually has adjusted a little bit of that in-person connection. But I do think I also went through the program myself as a founder. I went through 5 years ago, and I still have some of my closest friends are still folks I met at SkyDeck. I think founding is a very hard thing to do. There's a lot of sad moments, and there are a lot of ups and downs. And I think being just around a lot of other people who are just as smart, work just as hard, and are going through really the same struggles, it allows you to really open up and let off steam or share an excitement over a beer. And so we do a lot at SkyDeck in person to help our founders meet each other through happy hours and events and dinners and matchmaking and all that. And I think we're continuously trying to get better. But I also think there's no replacement for standing next to the espresso machine. And kind of just talking through a challenge or a struggle with somebody else. So I think just the fact that our folks are around each other and go through the same thing, they get to know each other. Multiculturalism is a core aspect of SkyDeck. I think it's a core aspect of our team. It's in the core aspect of UC Berkeley. So I think we really encourage having a lot of new faces, new ideas, new languages at SkyDeck. I'm sure at any one time, we probably had people who could speak 20 languages in total at SkyDeck. And so it can be very exciting as well. And as we say, we have these global founders and we have these Berkeley founders, these kind of local founders. I think they really work together well. The Berkeley folks get to benefit from having a whole new mindset, a whole new network, and just kind of a different way of thinking that I think a lot of the global founders provide. And I think a lot of the global founders get a lot of access, benefit a lot from the Berkeley folks because they have an established network here. They kind of been around Silicon Valley for a little bit of time. And so I think it allows for like an amazing infusion of relationships, so to speak.
Yeah, but a question here. So you said happy hours, just drinking beer together, etc. That was before. Now in these remote times, how do you manage to get people together when everyone is at home and it's hard, if not possible, to get them together?
Yeah, and I think it's a challenge for us. I think right now what we're trying to do is do some more like meet and greets, making our founders meet each other. We're doing a sort of round robin coffee system where our founders now will be encouraged to grab a random coffee with somebody each week from the cohort. So I think we're trying to create those interactions. And I think we're still working on that. So yeah, it's been a challenge doing it virtually. I think that's one of the aspects of our program. Probably, I would have thought a lot more about our program would have suffered going virtually, but I think it's actually gone amazingly. But yeah, the community aspect has been a little bit of a challenge there. But that's life. I think adding on to that though, I think one thing I realize is that because it's so hard to meet people in person, it's probably even more important to be a part of at least some community right now that helps your business move forward for kind of a variety of reasons. I think it's even harder to be a founder if you're just kind of in your apartment right now. I guess Europe's probably more open than we are here. And something else we heard about from investors too is that I was talking to one of our LPs. I'm like, how has this changed your investment strategy? And they said, it's hard to meet founders in person. And if I can't meet founders in person, that means it's hard for me to de-risk the team, which is a very important aspect of investment diligence. Therefore, we're going to be relying more on programs like SkyDeck and a variety of communities to better de-risk the teams. So, in some sense, I think this COVID-19 crisis has made it even more important to be a part of a community like ours, but time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. This remote format brings both benefits and drawbacks. We at our Armenia Startup Academy have moved to remote format too, and we did the demo day digital, and it's not as bad as we would expect before COVID-19. But as you brought this up, I would like to know about this remote format. How is it different from the in-house program you had in place, and what are some negative side effects, and what are the positive sides of this remote format? And is it equally effective without face-to-face communication with the founders?
Yeah. What does it really mean to be remote for us? I think it just means everything we do, we just do over Zoom now. I mean, I wish it was more complicated than that, but it really isn't. And of course, we're missing out on some of those. Actually, we're still doing dinners with luminaries. We're still basically doing everything, but just virtually. And so, negative side of things, I think, one, founders not being able to be in the trenches right next to each other, I think does make a difference. Some of our, I don't think our founders are becoming close friends in the same way. And maybe Gevorg can talk about it too. I mean, he has the experience, but that's kind of my perception. So that's one of the negative aspects. And I also think in general, just, as we all realize, Zoom is great, but meeting in person, you can just establish trust a lot faster with somebody if you're meeting with them in person and them and seeing their mannerisms and walking and talking with them, whatever it's going to be. So I think that's one of the two negative aspects. On the positive side, though, our advisor community has never been more engaged. I don't know why. Maybe everyone's just stuck at home and they're not commuting to meetings anymore, right? All around the Bay Area, no one's stuck in 30 minutes, an hour and a half of traffic each way, which could be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours every single day. So you're a VC, you're an executive, whoever you are, you have challenges, but you also have gained so much in terms of your commute time coming back. And I think a lot of our folks and our advisors, we've seen extra engagement from our advisor community. I also think because it's more difficult for tech people in general now to casually meet people at a meetup or a bar or an event, they're looking for folks like SkyDeck as the way to meet startups and engage startups. So I think it's increased our ability to engage advisors and folks who want to help us. And I think we'll see a lot of that engagement continue post-COVID-19. And the other advantage, I think, is it's really forced SkyDeck as an organization to learn how to scale. And I think some of these things that we are doing virtually, I think maybe, can be good practices and can be effective, whatever it's going to be. So I think we are benefiting from, having to adapt. And I think we'll see some long-term advantages in how we support and help teams. So that's kind of the good, the bad, and the good.
So are you expecting to keep this remote format for the next cohorts or just the one following?
So, I mean, let's see how well America does on this whole front. I think this program will be the current one will be completely remote. I know we have some conversations about maybe having 10 or 15 people in the office in August in a space that could fit, 100 people. So we'll see on opening up. My expectation, and this is kind of me projecting this as a member of the fund, I help run the fund, not the program on the same side. My expectation will be our next program starts on October 26th. The application's open next week, actually a week from today. So apply. But I think what'll happen is we'll probably be remote for 2020 completely. My hope is that around this February, March timeline, when our companies will be thinking about fundraising, that we'll be in a better position overall as a nation. The Bay Area itself actually has a very low caseload. We are extra careful here in the Bay Area. But yeah, my hope would be virtual to start. I mean, I'd love to be in person, but I think it'll be virtual to start, and then with a chance that it'll be in person afterwards for kind of 2021, some aspects there. So that's what I can say for now.
Interesting. Gevorg, anything to add on the this virtual format? So you don't have the experience of being in an in-house program, but do you feel like you missed something because of being far away from the core team?
I think there are objectively pros and cons, as Brian mentioned. He kind of really summarized, but I can share maybe a little bit more details. There's a different level of dynamics comes from face-to-face, in-person conversations. because like the connection is made a little bit differently, and like similar to that, like Zoom conversations, the dynamics of Zoom conversation is also different, and then there is also like all sorts of different kinds of overheads, like commute and things like that, and so like a lot of the benefits from for this format was, for instance, being able to stack back-to-back Zoom meetings and then having, using your time a lot more efficiently than one would be using, just having, I don't know, an hour commute between like a conversation, right? Like between two conversations. But on the other hand, depending on what you're building, like especially for the stuff that we are building, like for us, having like scalable conversation where we can have like in-person conversation with 2 or 3 researchers at the same time and just hop off the ideas and make these connections, that's definitely a con. Yeah, but at the same time, lots of these people are available in other way to have those conversations. So it's, I guess, the objectively this reality is definitely it's already been shown that one can work with, and we have made like number of friends during the cohort, and obviously it would have been a little bit different, like higher number if we were on site, having all these in-person conversations. Yeah, I think a lot of the difference kind of boils down to dynamics and the scale of interhuman interactions in a way. And so yeah, everything evolves around that, and it's adjustable. It's definitely adjustable. And I believe the hybrid is like the better. Like it seems like those Zoom meetings are great, but like sometimes you need to have a beer with a person to learn more about them. So yeah.
I think what you're missing there is the view from the SkyDeck.
Indeed.
And me coming by every day and saying, "Hey, what's going on with your revenue?
Yeah.
Tigran, where's your revenue at?"
Yeah, and then Brian came and seeing how our revenue goes.
Yeah, I think the guys. Yeah, that's another aspect. Like the level of intensity, the level of intensity when you're in the same room, it's absolutely different when you're at home. The context is so different. Yeah, sorry, Alex, I chimed in.
Oh, sorry. But I loved what just Gevorg said. Hybrid. COVID is sad, and I hope this will go away at some point as soon as possible. But I think hybrid is a great thing. That face-to-face meetings are of extreme value to me. I definitely love all these meetings that we had, and I love the view from the from the penthouse of the SkyDeck, definitely. But I was commuting to SkyDeck like I'm one of the cases, like Brian mentioned, like that several hours on the roads, because I was driving from the south of the Bay Area, and I don't know, probably hybrid can be something that maybe hybrid is the future. I know we learn from this COVID that a lot of things can be done more things can be done over Zoom than we thought before, but Zoom cannot definitely change everything. So I would go for hybrid.
Yeah, and apart from Zoom, more technologies aiming at making remote work more efficient will arise soon. So we won't depend on Zoom most probably. I would like to hear more about the alumni and share more of your experiences. And also, would like to know if after the program is over, do you still reap the benefits of being a SkyDeck alumni? And if so, in what ways do you benefit from the program as being a SkyDeck alumni?
Well, maybe I'll just start quickly on kind of how I see it, and I'm happy to have your all's perspective as well. The program finishes. And then, probably over the next 1 or 2 months, I would say we're really kind of being hands-on and painting the teams in some way on how the fundraising is going. As we're interviewing and gearing up for our next cohort, 90% of our time on staff and for the fund is focused on the current program. And then afterwards, and you all can, please feel free to provide your perspective on that. I think we're always there. We're never going to turn down a meeting that one of our founders wants. But I would say it goes from being proactive to being reactive. So we'll take, if our teams need advice or a quick call or whatever that's going to be, we'll take that. But it's not like we're asking this team every day, kind of, what are you doing? That being said, if we do meet new investors or we do meet somebody a potential new customer, we might try to make that introduction. But yeah, a lot of our focus is going to be on that program. A lot of our teams will kind of hang around also for the next maybe 3 to 6 months, kind of hot desk as well. And then after 12 months, I would say, we see the folks quite a bit less than normal, but we are doing a lot more work in engaging our alumni and trying to get them and our current cohorts to kind of meet each other. COVID-19 has made that a challenge, but we're trying to do, I think, a once a quarter event where our alumni and our teams can meet each other. And we're actually always open to, and I'll let you two know as well, if you all have ideas about how we can be more effective to alumni, we always are open to learning about that. So that's my 2 cents, but I'll totally let you guys say something as well.
So Brian partially said what I was about to say, and really the program kind of is over for us, but it's still part of your company. You can always reach out to Brian, John, or Caroline, or anyone else, or on any question. Like, you have these people extremely willing you to be successful, and they are always there to answer your questions. That's extremely helpful. And the network that Brian mentioned, it's not only during program. I guess I can say that you get this network for a lifetime. When I find someone on LinkedIn, I want to reach out, and I see that the person is UC Berkeley alum. It's much easier now for me to reach out to this person, because I can say, like, hey, go Bears. It's right. and you can wear this cap which says Cal. It's becoming part of your company.
Interesting. Anything to add, Tigran, on this side?
Yeah, I mean, you're becoming a part of the program. It's kind of a forever. You're a Sky alumni forever. Well, until you're not associated with company. Even if you're selling your company in the future, I'm sure you're still having your connections through SkyDeck. I mean, the part where you have a common Slack channel where you discuss a lot of questions, you can ask any question you want to this huge community that can answer you right away, because as founders, we always tackle some problems, and sometimes there's so many people that can answer your questions just right away. And this feeling is really, really powerful. And I have to really add the huge value of Chon Tang, who's in SkyDeck Fund, the director of SkyDeck Fund. His energy is endless, and I don't know how is he doing this, but there is no time that I could write him and then he would just answer in 5 minutes, even if it's 3 a.m. in the night. I don't know how he's doing it, but
Sean is available 24/7.
It's incredible how Sean was so involved in our development process, in our go-to-marketing strategy developments, on meeting new people, doing connections, connecting us to our advisors, all the educational stuff we learned, and we could have conversations with him basically almost every day. It could be 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and this was extremely powerful. And even after SkyDeck finishes, of course, we have that channel of communication that anytime we need something that would like to see what SkyDeck thinks or whether they can connect us with some people, I think it's still there after the program. So we're very excited to have this with SkyDeck.
Those are nice words for Brian too, right? To hear all these great things about
Berkeley. Sorry that I mean, Brian, didn't want to separate Brian here, because Brian is like a driving force. He's always walking around talking to the founders and seeing what's going on, how I can help. Tell me, what are you thinking about right now? And Brian even did a few of our early customer introductions that actually become big customers in the long run. So all this parts is, of course, I have to extend to Brian. Just wanted to mention Sean that who's not here, basically.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know how Sean does it either, if you'd be told. Yeah, it's inspiring. I've been working on getting as good as he is at replying within 1 minute to emails. That's always the weird part. You send an email and then 20 seconds later you get a response and you're like, wow, what's happening?
Yeah.
All right. We already covered the program highlights. I would like if there's anything else about your experiences and your top learnings from the program personally as founders and for your respective companies. Could you just mention a couple of top learnings from the program? I think this question goes for Alex and Tigran specifically. And Gevorg, of course, if you want to add something, you're very welcome.
So top learnings. One is probably culture, because especially, and it's important, especially for a global founder, you're basically coming from a different culture, and you understand in general how to do business, but it's really important to embrace the culture. So it's one of the big takeaways is exposure to culture, super helpful. I've learned a lot on fundraising, as I said before, like how to think like investors think, how to better analyze these questions, how to basically be better prepared for fundraising. How to go through the entire fundraising process. Always question the ideas. Never fall in love with something that just came to your mind. Just always question your ideas and try to validate. Maybe these are like the some of the biggest things. But there was enormous amount of learning, but these are maybe first things that are coming like top of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I can focus maybe one or two things that was extremely important for me while being in SkyDeck is understanding the importance of customer development and finding the right product market fit, and how important it is in order to, especially in early stage, for startup development. And there was very great program, I forgot the name, but we were doing a lot of customer calls, sharing this experience with teammates and other core program people. Basically, this way we understand what customer really needs, what is their pain. Sometimes we think we know everything, but it's not. So this was very, very enlightening for me, how important is the customer development, and this helps to figure out the right go-to-market strategy and go-to-market fit.
Do you work on customer development with advisors or with the SkyDeck team?
So there are SkyDeck advisors that help us as a special program to how to do the customer development. And we take that information and go out, reach out to people, ask the right questions, figure out how to organize this process. And ultimately, we take that information every week, and then we figure out, okay, should we go to this vertical? Should we talk to these people? Which problem are we solving actually? Who's the right person to talk to in this vertical? So if you don't know these answers right away, then you should do customer development. So this was specifically, connected with the Berkeley SkyDeck advisors who are helping us in this process.
Could you elaborate a bit more on this work with advisors? Do the startup teams, are they matched with certain people, or is it just an office hour and you can make an appointment with any advisor you need help from?
Maybe I could talk a little bit about the advisor network as well. So we'll do like 4 matchmaking sessions where each of our companies will meet around 8 advisors each time. So about 30 or 35 potential advisors. And this is over the course of the first 4 to 5 weeks. From there, they're going to select their 3, we'll have a mutual selection process, and they pick their 3 favorite advisors to become kind of their key or core advisors who they're probably talking to every day or every week, or like they're the people who are really kind of staying on top of this team. But that being said, our entire advisor network is open to every founder. When I went through the program, my key advisor was probably not the advisor who was giving me the most advice. I figured out a couple months in that there was somebody else I wanted to really work with. So we can be very flexible with how advisors spend their time. And then we're constantly bringing in, I mean, every week at SkyDeck, there's probably 10 to 15 office hours now. And these are people who are Berkeley alumni or people in our mentor or advisor community. And they're coming to SkyDeck to meet with people to share their advice. And then if we don't have somebody who's the right advisor, we will try to find the right person, which can happen as well. Somebody will say, well, I need to talk to, this person at Apple. And we'll, try to do the best we can to bring in that right person. So that's my perspective at least, but you guys probably want to shine some light in as well.
I can add a few words about advisors. I'm sure I'm probably one of those who benefited from advisor network quite a lot. So just one part is within the program, of course, you talk face-to-face to several advisors, figure out who's the best match for you, and then there's some selection process, and then you start working with them more closely. And then, of course, you're open to all the advisor network. I think there are some calls every week or sometime that every company is sharing what their needs, and then all advisor network people try to figure out if they can find the right people or they can solve that problem through their network. So I think that's maybe like a high level. For us, it was more about finding the right connections, and especially through this program and advisors, we eventually got to meet our core advisors in our company, which are 2 professors from UC Berkeley. And this was extremely important for us because these 2 professors are probably one of the top researchers in our space, and having them as our advisors gives a tons of validity and showing that if these people believe what we're building, and if we can work together with these people, it means we're doing something unique that people have to put attention to. And this is why I'm extremely excited about having Berkeley and SkyDeck as a connector to those people. Maybe on a separate note, we got to meet people that afterwards became our team members now, which are SkyDeck advisors. And these are extremely talented people, had tons of experience with startups, and now one of them is full-time involved as our VP of Business Development. Another one is helping us with partnerships. So for startups that eventually grow after SkyDeck, I think it's extremely helpful source to get to bring more people into your company.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what Tigran was saying is another proof of the how strong the network is and interconnected. We have a question from the audience about the advisors. Ashot is asking, are all the advisors in the program working pro bono, or there is some compensation model? Brian, would you take this question?
Yeah, so we specifically during the program, we don't allow any of our advisors to get paid or take equity for work. And we monitor that. I mean, occasionally we have 200 advisors. We hear about it, something like that would happen, but it's part of the program that no advisors will receive any compensation during the program. Now, after the program, if if core advisors and the teams want to set up an equity-based advisor relationship, we'll kind of provide advice on that, and we'll try to make sure no one gets taken advantage of. But that's something that, I think we can be happy with, right? If you spend 6 months trialing out an advisor and you love them, maybe it makes sense to bring them on your cap table. So that's kind of the way we think about it. Most of our advisors feel like this is a great way to give back to Berkeley. It's a great way to stay engaged with startups and such. That's kind of my answer on that front.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Rosa Pejanian. She's asking, is there any specific field you are especially interested in? For example, medtech, AI. What is the stage of the startup that should consider applying? And do you have any geographic limitations? So there's no geographic limitations?
No geographic limitations. Every industry, I would say, but we definitely love things that are more technological. AI, life science, industry, deep tech. We definitely like things that have, like, if it requires a master's or a PhD, we definitely enjoy that. But by no means does every one of our startups have that. Consumer is the only thing that I think we don't do a lot of, right? Only 10% of our companies are consumer companies. So that's something. And then stage. Typically speaking, our companies are 6 months to 3 years old. They have some kind of customer traction. It might not always be revenue. Maybe it's revenue, maybe it's LOIs, maybe it's users, but they have some kind of market validation at least. And then they probably raise somewhere between 0 and even up to $1 million before the program. Alex, how much did you raise before the program?
Like probably around $300,000-$400,000.
Yeah, $300,000 or $400,000. So I mean, and I think some of them just raised 50, like SuperAnnotate, Tigran. You probably raised what, maybe like 150 or so before the program?
Right. We had 150K, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of a range. We have some companies that come to us having freshly closed $800,000, $1 million of funding. We have some folks who were the first check investor in the company. So that's kind of the range. We call that pre-seed. I think it's less about where you are today and more about where you want to be in 6 months or 6 to 12 months, we'll say. If you're hoping to close a $1 to $5 million round of funding in the next 6 to 12 months, I think I would highly consider SkyDeck as a partner in that endeavor.
Yes, and since the question was about since you already covered the fundraising funding part, there's another question from Anna, and I would like to jump in and ask that one. Thank you for a very interesting discussion. We know that SkyDeck invests 100K upon accepting a team into the program. What's SkyDeck Fund's follow-on investment strategy?
Yeah, so for us, we invest that initial check, and then typically we don't invest again until that company is raising at least $2 million. They have a lead investor on board, and typically that round is priced, meaning it's not a safe or convertible debt, it is an equity round. So those are our parameters for investing in follow-on companies. So we're never gonna lead the next round of funding. We might put $100,000, $200,000 into a follow-on round of funding. But that's after the company has already found its lead investor. So that's kind of where we fit on the follow-on. Like, don't rely on us for, continuing to fund your business. That's not our model. Our model is give you a check right now and do everything we can to help you find more investors. And that's kind of, what our thesis is, what we promised our investors and such. So that's kind of our investment thesis. It's mostly focused right away, and then we might put a small check in a larger round later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I would also like to mention one more time that the next program, the applications will be open next week, right, Brian?
Yes.
So you can already start applying from next week. Yeah,
so on July 8th, the applications will open. Right now, you can actually go to the website and you can fill out a small form, which allows you to share a little bit of information, but that's not the real application. But it gives me a little bit of insights or a highlight ahead of time. The applications open on July 8th. They're closed on August 7th or August 8th. I forget the exact details. It's on the website. The interviews will be in September, and the program starts at the end of October. If you're considering applying to SkyDeck, let me give you a couple pieces of advice. As someone who's gone through the program, looked through all the applications, looked at accelerators. I think one of the biggest challenges we see with companies, like why do we turn away most companies? I would say kind of threefold. One, no technical co-founders or no technical people on the team. It's a really easy way for us to say no. We really lean on technical people, and we require that for our companies. We don't really like just ideas. We'd probably like to see that there's something built, even if that's 3 or 6 months of technology, a prototype. It doesn't need to be a product. It could just be something built. We like to see something built. But the two things that we really get stuck on are competitive differentiation. How are you different than what's out there right now? How are you going to be 5x or 10x better than what's out there right now? If there's already a company that's raised $100 million, what are you going to do to beat them? And I think I found with a lot of global founders that one of the biggest challenges is that what they're building is amazing for their local market, but might not be unique enough to compete in Silicon Valley. So that's something that we're really looking for. So spend some time on that question. Really think through what makes you unique. And the next is traction. And I think a lot of companies get worried because they say, I don't have revenue. I don't have revenue right now. What do I do to prove traction? And I think in that instance, yes, we really, we love when there's revenue on board. We love seeing customers paying, but it's definitely not required. And so do what you can to show us that the market wants this, right? Revenue at the stage is not because, I really care if a business has 5K a month in revenue for the sake of getting revenue. It's because it shows me that customers want this. And maybe Gevorg can talk about this a little bit as well, but, get people to sign LOIs, to write letters, to say they want this, to become beta users. Do what you can to show that people want this product, and that matters. I mean, there's a decent chunk of our companies that just come in with 10 to 20 letters of intent from potential customers saying, I will use this when the product is out, and we take those seriously. So definitely think about the market validation in your business, because that's definitely something that we think about. Just general tips about venture capitalists. We don't know that much about technology. We like to claim that we do, but really I think founders know 10 times more than we do about the tech. What VCs look at is markets, and we don't know if this new awesome AI solution is really gonna help developers, let's say. But if you can take us to developers who say they want this, we take that seriously. So we really rely on what customers are saying, and what users are saying. So that's kind of my feedback quickly. And if you have data around that, that's great, right? If you have like retention data, churn data, growth data, we love seeing data as well. So it's just some tips on that question.
Anything to add, Gevorg?
Yeah, I was just there. So I think Brian really summed up very well. Like for us, what we have seen, the important thing, like being able to effectively communicate your progress and essentially the companies you're talking to and what they're liking from your product and what interests them, and essentially and that's like good for your company in the first place, but the second place is also that just shows to like potential investors and whoever is, including SkyDeck, right, that this product makes sense and there is like a need for a market, and essentially so it really comes down to effectively communicating whether there's a need and then how you're going to serve that need, and how how are you going to compete against some of these larger kind of Series B company that is building kind of similar product out there, right? It really comes down to an effective communication.
Great, thank you. I have many questions from my side, but there are questions from the audience too. And since we are running out of time, let's get to them first.
Folks, is it okay if I hop off? I think I have to hop on my next call. Is that okay?
Could you take one more question?
I'll take one more question. So I'm just sorry about that. I have to step on next to the call soon. But yes.
I'll be very, very quick. So Ashot is asking, what are SkyDeck's top companies of all time so far?
What are the top? Well, I mean, you're talking to all of them right here. Every one of our companies we love. No, I mean, I will say our median companies are exceptional. Whenever people ask me a question like, is there some surprising thing you found sourcing global founders? And like Armenia. Like it is just amazing there. And like no one knows, like not a lot of people know it out here, but we are just feel so lucky that we've been able to, originally work with Chris, who's Armenian founder, and now being able to really work with a lot of great entrepreneurs. So, I guess that wasn't the answer. Successful entrepreneurs. So, we've been doing the fund for about 2.5 years, and some of our top companies, I think, SuperAnnotate's doing, great from a fundraising standpoint right now. Chris has raised quite a bit of money. Quite a few of our companies have raised some capital. We're now starting to see some Series A's. We've had 2 Series A's this year as well. ThinkSight is another one in the medtech space. But SkyDeck's been around for 8 years. So before the fund, we had a couple of big companies. Lime Scooters came through the program in 2017. It's a scooter company that was a unicorn. I think they've been a little bit degraded at this point. Not degraded, but I think the valuation has dropped from below unicorn status. Some of the better ones we have are Symbio Robotics, which is a robotics company here that was backed by Eclipse and Andreessen. Nearly every major fund of the Valley has backed the SkyDeck team in the past. Zendit is a company in Southeast Asia that's doing payments. They've been really killing it as well. So, a lot of our companies, you don't read about them on the front page of TechCrunch because they're enterprise or industrial or deep tech. But SkyDeck has a long history of helping our companies be successful and get funded by great investors.
All right, thank you. That's very nice to hear. Too. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. So we have one more question, though it was addressed to Brian, so we will skip that one. I would just to ask you all if there's anything really important and pressing that we can't leave today without discussing. This is the time to share that.
Okay, go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, Tigran. There's one more thing with SkyDeck that you're gonna learn juggling with balls. For sure.
Yes, that's
I'm not sure whether that works in virtual case, and maybe Gevorg can shed some light on this, but I know I really like this. This is super important part of the program.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So could you explain that a bit more?
It's like when you're building a company, there is lots of things you have to do at the same time. But with SkyDeck, it's like maybe 5x more pressure and more intensity. But also the resources that is available, because you see Berkeley is one of the greatest universities in the world, and it has such a huge network. And essentially, if you're a company that is building something scientific related or like deep tech, as it's another way to call it, it's definitely a place to be.
Yeah, if I can add just final words here. So there are tons of accelerators in the world, especially in the Valley, and for example, the most famous Y Combinator. And they usually accept 100 to 150 companies in one cohort. What is unique about SkyDeck is that you have a very close connection with the people from SkyDeck, almost everyday interaction. It's rather you're part of that community much more, in a sense that you get connection, you get interaction with the people in SkyDeck very spontaneously. Quite often it's more I'm trying to find the right word, like you're very close to the whole system. In other accelerators, when there's too many startups, there's not much time to take care of you that closely as you are in SkyDeck, and this is what our experience was. Not trying to advertise too much SkyDeck, but this is just our experience. I think this was very helpful for us, especially if you're super early, you're just trying to understand how to do business. I'm pretty sure many companies knew how to do business that when it came to SkyDeck, we didn't. So this was very helpful for us.
I also want to add something, and I think Tigran and Gevorg may agree with that. So SmartGateVC was one of our first investors, and we've also learned a lot from Asho, Tambartsum, and Vazgen, and that also kind of created some sort of foundation that helped at least our company to get to undertake that decision of going into SkyDeck and actually making it to the SkyDeck. So I'm it's great to have such great investors because they care about you and they share a great piece of advice.
Absolutely, 100% agree. SmartGate guys, it's more like they brought us on the ground into the level that we're ready for the top accelerator program, and I think without that help, it would be quite hard.
It's like a decent combination of vision and like objectiveness. I don't know how they do it, but that's all definitely there. Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you for joining us and sharing your experiences. I enjoyed this discussion and learning more about your experiences and the program in general. And I believe this has been an hour well spent for the audience too. If you joined from the middle, I would just to inform that the video will be uploaded just after we post the live streaming. And thank you all again for joining us. Would like to also add that the next startup program in this series would be the Draper University of Heroes on July 14th, 8 p.m. again. And you may join that. And before that, we'll have a Q&A with Liana Karapetyan, CEO and co-founder of the crowdfunding formula. We'll talk about crowdfunding for startups. The Q&A will be on July 8th, 7 p.m. Thank you all. It's been great having you in the panel, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good to be here. Bye-bye.
Thanks.